Well, hello there, friends. It's me, Carpo, your favorite YouTuber. 12 years and running. Wait, 13 years and running. I forget another year has passed and I'm getting older, getting older and older. And every year, I wonder, how much better can it get? And then sometimes I ask myself, how much worse can it get? And that's why I'm making this video today. I haven't been making many videos lately, obviously, because I've been, well, I haven't had the brain power after work. I tried to make a couple at work, but I'm just not in the mode to chat with a camera after working all day in construction, then driving home for an hour, hour and a half. It can be miserable, but at the same time, I'm actually doing better than I've been doing in a long time. For multiple reasons, I won't go into them, but I've done a lot of mental processing and I'm overcoming these hurdles. The 40s can be rough, okay? I know teenage years can be rough. Then in your 20s, you may think, oh, things are exciting. The 30s can be rough, the 20s can be rough. It doesn't matter. It depends on the person and your circumstance. You know, if you're if you're out there and you're lonely in your 20s, you're not going to be having much fun. But if you have a young family and everything's going great, and yes, family makes a huge difference. I firmly believe in many traditional values, and which might surprise people. I believe that, you know, a mother and a father raising kids leads to the overall best outcome as long as those kids are properly raised, which goes without saying. But that in today's world, there seems to be a big movement to not even have kids. We have even a word for it. Antinatalism is the extreme version of it, where people think that humans shouldn't reproduce at all. I have never been able to process this as a legitimate viewpoint. In other words, I have learned to never attach myself to ideas. So I can argue a point that I think is true or that I think is right or wrong. And if somebody else has a different opinion, it doesn't affect me personally. I don't get angry when somebody disagrees with me. I don't get frustrated with people unless they're just being blatantly ignorant on purpose, which a lot of people are. But in that case, I just walk away because I have nothing to prove. I just state my case and I move on. But with antinatalism, it's one of those things where it's not just where I can just say, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion. They are. But it's one of those things where I might just say, oh, everybody's different. It's more like your opinion is wrong about humanity in general. In other words, if you have any type of life philosophy whatsoever, but you don't think humans should exist, it's just a weird combination. But that's not about that. This is not about antinatalism or the, you know, general depravity of our society, which, you know, it's funny because years ago I heard this coming from usually pretty right-wing people, and I would always laugh at them, be like, tradition is dead, you know, things change, things evolve, which is true as well. Yet the older I get and the more I understand about history, because I'm obsessed with learning about, you know, past civilizations, how they rose, how they fell, you know, the trials and tribulations of our ancestors. And the more I see that, the more I realize that the history repeats itself mantra really does ring true. It's not always the same, but every society that has ever reached a state of comfort has reached what they, I guess, call the age of decadence. And many people think of Rome. It's always the go-to, Rome. There are so many different cultures. There's Constantinople, you know, there were the Phoenicians, there were, you know, the Aztecs. There was such a vast land of Aztec civilization, and I know a lot of people think that Columbus came and killed off the Mayans and the Aztecs and don't really understand that. It's a very complicated history, but it was over a period of a century or more as the disease wiped out many people. What a lot of folks don't know is that the Aztecs had been in long decline way before anybody set foot on those shores, that there had been so much infighting among their own leaders. And what I've come to understand is that once this is, and it's windy out there. I gotta say, I don't know if you can see this with the camera, but God, it's windy. I mean, it's just like blowing shit all over the place. Doesn't usually get that windy here. But anyhow, it's kind of nice to just look out the window while I'm making a video. I don't usually have that opportunity. Unless I'm outside, in which I'm cold. Bird. It's cold out there. So, as I was saying, the Aztecs had been in decline because of many of the excesses of the elite, the higher-ups. Every culture through history, I know a lot of people romanticize the past and say, we've got to go back to the old ways. And I was one of those people as well when I was younger. Now I realize how dumb that was. The old ways, there was a lot of suffering. It depends on what you mean. So I say, on one hand, I'm a traditionalist in some sense. But on the other hand, no, we don't want to go back to everybody just farming their own food. And, you know, we have a system in place because humans, over thousands of years, have slowly agreed and cooperated within groups and built these systems that when a system works, then it's transferred to the next culture. If a system doesn't work, it's discarded. But something that's unavoidable is that every society thinks that progress is the end result, the end goal, consistent progress. We build and build and build. How many cultures have wiped out all their own trees? And how many cultures have deforested to the point where their soil blew away? Many. In fact, a lot of folks don't even realize in the, I believe, the Eastern Sahara, maybe it's the Western Sahara, through LiDAR scans, they've found several areas where people lived just a few thousand years ago. And some of the theories go that some of these cultures got so big that they ended up cutting down all the trees in the area. Those trees release moisture. That moisture helps to create air currents, which bring the monsoons inland to give water. And when those trees were gone, the monsoons failed to come in. Now, there is something to be said about the climate does shift, not just climate change, but there's a belt in Africa that goes, you know, north and south over thousands of years. So one area that's a forest today would be a desert tomorrow. So there are circumstances which cause these things to happen where, you know, there's no matter how well you're living and how close to nature you're living, and you're just going to get screwed. But we live in a time now where the technology is unique and different that can help us actually escape from these things. Many of our ancestors built underground cities and bunkers to hide from, you know, whether it's other humans, which is usually the biggest threat, and that's another thing, marauders, thieves, bandits. In fact, the armies, many of the militaries, people might say, why were there so many militaries and armies in the past? You know, in these cultures, why was it such a prevalent thing? Well, it was because they were basically mercenaries in a lot of cases. Yeah, they'd work for the king or for the kingdom, but they got paid, you know, not just in rewards for going to battle, but they could plunder and steal everything, ruthlessly cutting through villages and pillaging and burning down people's homes or taking them over. It's just this ongoing pattern. But this always happens during a time when that city is doing so well, and they neglect their own defenses. They might have a large military, but they might have become passive and lazy and depraved in a sense, not taking on that burden, that obligation of being a conscientious human, somebody who's not a pacifist, who can fight when he needs to, but doesn't choose to pick a fight. These are some of the cultural traditions that I talk about. When I say, like, be a man, man up, I still think those terms are very important. I think a lot of young men have become completely numb to the idea. Some have become extreme to the sense that they think being a man is all about how you look and how tough you are. That's part of it, maybe. But really it's about how you protect yourself, your values, your loved ones. That's what makes a man. Taking on things that you don't want to do. It's what makes us feel better. So as the world's in decline, and I feel like we're living at kind of this peak, if you want to call it, of civilization, and I know a lot of folks would disagree. They'd say, oh no, we can always work our way out of problems. The thing is, technology cannot save us from our own stupidity. We have an overwhelming amount of addictions now, not just drugs, but screens, gambling ads all over the TV and the internet. it's just become the norm to completely fuck people out of their money. Even some of the best podcasts, and I was just watching a video about this, some of the podcasts that I love to listen to, he was pointing out how, sure, they're all sponsored by Athletic Greens and Huel and all this other crap. So they bring on all these, health experts, and they talk about how you need to take care of your body, you need to eat real food. And, oh, by the way, this is brought to you by some powdered drink mix that is supposed to replace your meals. And they talk about it so enthusiastically, and they're so full of shit. And I guess that's why I don't play the game and why I'm still a small YouTuber, right? Because I haven't taken on controversies and I haven't taken on, these sponsors. And I've been contacted by several sponsors, and I'm like, why would I sell this product, right? But that's just one small part of it. It's this idea that a financial incentive is all that drives people. And for a lot of folks, that really is the thing. That's doing the thing for them. They might not start out that way, but they get captured. Just like we get captured with the media in the left or right hemispheres, the bias. I heard somebody say this the other day. It comes to mind because it's something that I've always said that I've never really heard anybody say before, which is that I believe that, say, within any country, you're going to have you might have several different opinions, but you're going to have two main parties. And these parties are like the hemispheres of the brain. You've got your rational side, you've got your creative side. It's never that simple. But the idea is that we lack without a combination of the two. And how everything is divided into, I don't want to say it's duality or any type of, let's just leave the terms out of it. Say that everything has balance somewhere if you look at it properly. And anytime we lean in too far one direction, we fall over. I want to live my life with the best values and morals I can, and so far that's served me. I don't let other people, command me around or tell me what to do, unless I've chosen to take a job, in which case I'm happy to oblige for a boss because that's what I'm there and paid to do. I try to have the best work ethic I can, to always stay busy, to not try to cheat anyone and never steal or lie. That honesty and integrity is something that a lot of people might say, well, that's just, putting your nose up, saying, I'm this way. It's true. It is. Because I believe living that way makes you a happier person. I believe being honest about some of this history that we have, which I haven't gotten to the point of yet, of all these wars we've fought and all these civilizations that have collapsed. It's this age of decadence right at the end that ends up eating every society. And that's something we can choose. What happens is once people become too complacent and too comfortable, then they start to lose value in life and its endeavors. And it brings about a class of people, a group, not even a group, but a certain type of person who just wants to chastise anything, anyone. Let's just think of a Twitter troll for a minute. Somebody who just always has to have an opinion on every topic, and every opinion they have is just to get attention or get somebody else angry. These are the people we don't need in the world, just like we don't need the sociopaths. The kind of people that all of us should chastise. The kind of people who will put others down. But we don't. We celebrate that because they're famous or they're wealthy. And, oh, you're just jealous because this person's successful. Sorry for the air quotes, but it's a joke. It's complete nonsense. Many of these folks are as miserable as anyone else, if not more so, trying to defend their egos and protect their, all of their earnings. And it's just such a joke. It really is. It's like, get your shit together does not mean you have to make a bunch of money. It definitely helps to have some. You should definitely work for what you have. But I think it has to be earned. Just like everything good in life. You can't just give someone something and have them be happy about it. It's something that's earned means so much more. And there's a lot of people out there who have never even put in the effort to earn anything. And not just money. Putting in the time. For a family, for example. Instead, people just write it off. Now, marriage is just a piece of paper, and yeah, I don't want kids. No, maybe not. Who does when they're young, right? So, some people. But eventually, you start to realize what life is really about. And it's all about connections. It's all about sharing our opinions and values, not just with people in general, but with people who give a shit what we have to say. And that's really the key. You could be the most famous person in the world and talking to everyone, but no one's really hearing you, you know? And I feel bad for folks like that. You know? One thing I think about, you know, some of the actions that we take in this world, it's like we only do as mobs. It's like that mob rule mentality. Well, other people are talking about this, or I saw this on the news, or my group agrees with this, therefore that's my thing for the week, right? That I got to be upset about. Only in a society that has pretty much everything given to it can people have the time to complain. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people out there who have nothing. But there are a lot of people out there who also have nothing who could do something. And that makes it very difficult to navigate and figure out who is who. I grew up poor, and I've never had very much money, so I'm not saying I'm successful, you should be. I don't make money. I mean, I work as a carpenter, I go to work every day, but I definitely understand this kind of cultural fad of wanting your 15 minutes of fame. So many of these predictions, you know. It's like we're living in 1984. You've heard that a million times with the way that speech is being coerced and people are policing each other now, canceling people. It really is kind of like living in that dystopia. How long can it last? I would say don't let other people's narratives break what you know to be true, and that means about yourself as well. Do not let society gaslight you. I mean that. That's probably the most important takeaway from this discussion here. Don't be gaslit by other people's bullshit. The more people lean into something and have to prove it, the more it's just worth ignoring, because unless it's really important to you and it's between you and a loved one or a good friend, don't bother with it. It's not worth your time. You say your piece and move on. There's a lot of talk about stoicism. Being stoic, that would be part of it, to be able to just accept things and not take things too seriously. I would just caution against taking stoicism to its, extreme, which is pretending like nothing bothers you. This is one important factor that we need to remember, that you're going to get angry sometimes, and that's okay. Just learn to let it pass through you. You're going to get frustrated. And you're going to be sad one way or another. If you manage to abandon sadness by being too stoic, you will lose track of your emotions, because like anything else, it's a muscle. You exercise it. Emotions, like the brain in general, and the body, physically and mentally, we have to constantly exercise things and produce those new neural connections. So when you see something that bothers you, find a positive aspect about it. Find the silver lining, because it's for your own good. Being pessimistic, constantly, talking about the problem with other people, putting down this group or that group, that's never going to make you happy. It's only going to put a Band-Aid on your own insecurity. And there's a lot of that right now. But if your confidence cannot be broken by new truths that you discover, then that's when it's egotism or hubris. In other words, you don't have to be gaslit and change your mind because somebody else says something is so. But you should listen and really analyze what a person's saying. Sometimes they're right or part right. But I think that these foundational values that we've always had, things like gratitude, family, friends, connections, and yes, dare I even say, church for some people. I know a lot of folks out there are anti-religion. I know a lot of folks out there are pro-religion. A lot of people believe that you need to believe this or you'll never be happy, and some people say if you believe any religion, you'll never be happy. And I'll tell you, the truth is, once again, somewhere in the middle. You can call it spirituality, you can call it what you want. Find your church. I'm going to a concert tonight. I kind of forgot about it until my son reminded me. He's like, "Are you going to the show tonight?" I was like, "Oh fuck, I totally forgot." It's a band called Less Special, LES, yeah, Less Special, and they're not. It's a smaller venue, and anyway, they're kind of like electronic jam band slash metal, like Primus, and the guy sounds like Primus, and it's Les Claypool anyway. It's a very interesting band, and tickets were only like $20. So I was like, yeah, I'll get a couple last week just to force myself to go. But anyway, that's my church. Going to see music. My church is when I go to the woods and out in nature and I talk to the trees, hug the trees. Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I just try to understand the world as best I can through the lens that I have available to me. And I'm just so grateful to be me in this world. I'm sure I'd be grateful whoever I was, but learning to love myself was a difficult thing. I've always thought I loved myself, but it was a lot more arrogance when I was younger. I had to actually prove to myself that I am who I say I am, and I wanted to strive to be the person that I claim I am. I've had ups and downs. Hell, during 2020, I was drinking a little more vodka than I would like to admit. Had some deep thoughts about how I need to once again have deep thoughts. I realized that alcohol just cut out my ability to reason and think rationally. Alcohol is poison. It's disgusting. I still have a beer after work, but I have a beer. I don't drink like I did then. But it was funny because I wasn't an alcoholic I didn't drink all day or anything, but it was like every day. And I started to see this in myself and made excuses for it. I'm like, well, it's just a couple drinks, a few drinks. Then it's a 6-pack. I'm like, okay. Yeah. People are like, oh, that's nothing. I drink a half rack. It's like, okay. We all make justifications for what we do. And I guess my point here is that I have many habits, many things that I do that people might be surprised, or not surprised. But most of them are really just interests in altered states. Differences, not even with drugs. I mean, just doing certain things or going off by myself, setting aside time for yourself to think, even in the car if you have to turn off the stereo and just process things when you're driving. I wish I could carpool to work so I could just close my eyes and, think about stuff, listen and really focus on something. But it's hard, and we don't make time for ourselves to do these things. And I just wanted to say to everyone out there, the world is falling apart. It seems to be anyway. Nobody seems to give a shit about the important issues anymore. But you don't have to let that get you down. As I said, I feel like the world's at one of its lowest points right now, as far as just how people are acting and behaving to one another, at least in my country. Yet, I feel better day to day than I felt in a few years. And that just goes to show that you don't have to let your environment affect you. If shit can get worse around you and you can feel better, I should say, if shit can get worse around me and I can feel better, you can too. I mean, hell, my mom died in November. My wife's mom died the month before. We're still dealing with all this funeral crap and all the paperwork. So much shit's happened that I almost just feel like it just snapped something in me. Like, how much worse can it get? Don't ask that question. Because after the new year started, I thought, okay, things are good now. My car broke down like 4 times since the new year. And now it's starting to spew out smoke on my way home today. So, whatever, right? Fucking whatever. It doesn't matter. The shit will get taken care of if we take care of it eventually. One of my downfalls, I'm a procrastinator, but to finalize on the historic thing, really learn your history and take things in a historic context. Just because somebody made a mistake in the past doesn't mean it might necessarily be a mistake today. In other words, some things were tried that we weren't ready for, and maybe they do work. But overall, you can see the patterns that haven't worked. And just living in decadence and thinking that if everything's handed to us, we're going to be happy, we're dead wrong. Dead wrong. I guarantee it. You don't see people out there who are truly happy, who have absolutely nothing and have everything just given to them. Just like you don't see people who are truly happy who have everything, because they will tell you. When I was a kid, we didn't have this knowledge because most people kept it to themselves. The internet has opened up Pandora's box of people's thoughts. We're still processing what this means, realizing that people aren't who we thought they were, or other people might have a good point that previously we hadn't even considered. But amidst this, you can get a good gauge for what makes people truly happy. And it's the ones that are doing the best for themselves and their loved ones that always shine. So I bid you farewell and good day, my friends, and I will see you next time. I'll try to put up a new podcast soon. I haven't been doing them all this new year. I don't even know why I pay for the service anymore. It's because I like talking to the camera, maybe more than a microphone, because it's more like talking to a person. I guess if I just filmed myself while I did the podcast and then just deleted it, that would work too. But that's what I've done in the past. Anyway, rambled enough. Thanks for your time, and take care of yourself. Take time to make some friends. Get to know people. It's all that life is our connection to other people's. Not what we do for ourselves, but the things that we really do in the presence of others. I may not live it all the time, but I'm trying. Peace and be well.